Hi and welcome to this live conversation with my dear friend Laura Waldman. And for those of you who have been here for more than 5 minutes, you probably already know Laura. She's called the Abundance Activator. She's an author, a healer, a mentor. She's been working for over 20 years, sharing all her wisdom, a lot of lived experience, and also teaching, writing, speaking, creating incredible live events and programs and so much more. And Lara is based in London, England, but she's originally from Canada. And I have known Lara for a really long time, I think over, almost 10 years, I think now, or maybe 8 or something like that. So Lara and I have done a lot of things together. We've had a lot of conversations. And today I'm super excited to dive into one particular conversation that is all about pain and grief and loss and how this can be a portal into more prosperity, more power, and stepping more into our purpose. So welcome, Lara.
Thank you for having me. So excited to talk about pain today.
Our favorite topic. And one of the sub parts of this theme as well is how to create a soulful success, how to create soulful success when everything is falling apart. Because I would love to, I know you talk about this a lot in when you teach online, offline, how instead of feeling like pain, it means that we've done something wrong or that we've failed in some way. I would love for you to share a bit about how you use pain or really uncomfortable, difficult times in your life in order to dive deeper into your purpose and your power and prosperity.
I'd love to share. And it is important for me to share that I've learned all this the hard way, the slow, long, and painful way. And so one of my passions is to share everything I've learned to help you fast track. So what took me 10 years doesn't need to take you as long, right? So that is my passion. So first of all, what I do is work with the symptoms, right? The symptoms of pain. So that could be through physical ill health or through a problem in your business or a challenge in the finances or within your team, and at home, relationships, et cetera, all the places that we can be challenged by, and see it as a gift, that life is happening for you, not to you. Moving from victim consciousness into empowerment and getting into the driver's seat of your life. Now, of course, when there is any pain, trigger, challenge, that's not our first thought. Oh, this is a gift. How wonderful. Even me, who knows this inside out and upside down, will fight it and we'll get frustrated, trigger, challenge, right? So that's the first thing. It's very human to react and have our initial reaction to any pain or challenge or obstacle. But what I've learned to do is to work with that pain or challenge and stay present with it, because the default, right? I don't know about you, but my default is to run away, avoid, deflect, fight, right? There's all of these default nervous system responses that we have, that fight, flight, freeze, fawn, to avoid or to run away from pain. It's very, very natural. We're hardwired towards comfort and pleasure. And so this is kind of going against the grain, of course. But what I've learned to do, and again, the hard way, because I've done plenty of buffering and avoiding and sabotaging and suppressing, all the things, I've done it all, and still can default into it. But I've learned to then go, hey, wait a minute, this thing is happening. What is here? Where is the gold? And so what I found is first to create space to really process all the initial reactions and triggers and clear the decks through all that mental noise and mental agitation. But as I hold space for that, and as we stay present with the pain, something incredibly powerful starts to happen, which is a deeper wisdom starts to emerge and information starts to be revealed through the courage of staying present with the pain and going through the pain portal, right? It's like a birth canal. And now I'm not an advocate of staying locked or stuck in pain in terms of where we can get stuck, right? You can get sort of stuck in cycles of pain, or stuck in cycles of like feeling like a victim, or stuck in cycles of maybe depression or anxiety. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about staying present with the pain so it can begin to alchemize and begin to transform. And when we stop fighting and stop resisting, it's like we open the doorways into a new level. And what I found is, again, fighting and screaming, kicking and fighting, is that there is this soul's wisdom that starts to emerge. Because on a soul level, right, there isn't judgment of like right, wrong, good, bad. There is our soul's desire to realize itself, to know itself in the physical. We are here to have a physical experience, which means experiencing the full spectrum of life. And part of being a human being means experiencing a full spectrum of feelings and experiences as well. So what I found is there's a gift, or there is a lesson, or there is a purpose to what is happening on a deeper level, even though it feels painful. And even though you're like, this is not a gift I'd ever want to give to anybody, but we can alchemize it into a gift. And this is what I made a choice to do, but it's a practice. And then what I found is even the things that feel the most horrendous, the hardest, there is so much in there in terms of evolution, growth, self-development, but also unexpected portals into more pleasure, into prosperity, into welcoming the things you want. But it's not logical at all. And it doesn't seem like, it will definitely not seem like that on the surface. So this is what I found. And it does take like deep diving. It's not necessarily going to reveal itself immediately or right away. But I have found that in time, we can start gathering the gold. And it's also a choice. It's like a way to think. It's a point of view. I choose to work with pain. I choose to go in and find the gold within every challenge. And I've also been guided into that I know that whatever is happening, there is something for me here. But I also choose to see it that way. And I go mining for gold, right? I go deeper and under the pain and go, right, because I know on a soul level, this is happening for me, right? Not to me, right? After the fighting, I go in and then start to cultivate incredible things. So that's where I begin.
I love that so much. I feel like it creates such a depth of experience, right, in our bodies. Like it's a deeper embodiment, and it creates depth in all areas, because the deeper we can go into the pain, the deeper we feel, like you said, pleasure and joy and love. And I feel like it just creates a much richer experience, where the opposite is also true. When we don't go in and we avoid it, then it's really difficult. Then we also, I feel, are on the surface level when it comes to love and joy and pleasure too. Because like either we go in and we accept to feel it all, or we don't. But we can't like pick and choose, like, no pain for me, I'm just going to go with the joy and the happiness and the love and the pleasure, right? So I feel like it's such a rich experience, and it's something that we really feel in our bodies, as well as our souls and hearts and minds and other parts of us. But it's really an embodiment practice, I find. And you said also, like, it's unexpected sometimes what we find, because in the moment we know that this pain will support our growth and will lead the way, but we don't necessarily know where or to what, or what it will bring to us. And I find it incredible, the gifts that we experience, and how this diving into pain business really creates experiences and transformations that we could never have imagined. You and I talked about this a lot, to do with like grief as well, because you lost a dear friend a while back, and my mom died 6 months ago, and we talked a lot about this, like the sense of loss. And when we dive into that, what it really means, how we really feel about it, and really feeling the depth of that, and how in the moment it's really painful and hard and heavy, and we don't necessarily see the end. It's not like I'm doing this to get that, right? You just dive in, kind of like giving birth. I know this is what I'm heading towards, but I don't really know what's on the other side, but I go anyway. And then the incredible gifts and that kind of deep inner transformation that I find happens. And we can sense it in other people too, right? It's like a, I don't know, like a brighter light inside of us, more power, showing up more fully, becoming more ourselves. Like it's incredible, I find. And I find also in the spiritual world where we get a lot of the like judgment around pain or illness or any of those things, as if it's something that we've gotten wrong or something we've missed, or maybe we're not enlightened enough. And I love how you really ask people, and do it yourself too, to dive in and really see it as a portal. And when you get to the other side, or at least for that time, right? Because it's like an ongoing journey. There's something beautiful on the other side. And it's a process and it's a movement, because you said not to get stuck as well in the pain, because that can also become a comfort zone to constantly be looking for pain. I mean,
Yes.
we don't mean to, but we can also get addicted to feeling bad. But this is different, right? Because it's like a movement. We don't necessarily stay in the same place for a long time. It's like we're moving forward, even if you can't always tell on the outside.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd say, yeah, because you and I like to kind of elevate and like high vibes, and that's the great thing about spiritual practices. It's, you know, there's all these amazing tools and techniques that, you know, we've both used over many, many years. But what I found for myself is spirituality and healing and all this energy work and mindset work was a hugely important step for me to pull myself out of a very deep pit of depression and eating disorders and self-hate and self-sabotage and the depth of darkness. And then it elevated me out of that and showed me a whole other possibility. But it got to a point where then I was using the same tools to disassociate and stay disconnected. So I would find peace in these really high realms of consciousness, and I'd get these amazing visions. And like in meditation, I'd be like, oh my God, this is incredible. And I'm a huge advocate for meditating, but I struggled to then bridge back into real life. And this has been, you know, a really stressful, Karina knows, it's been a very stressful and hard thing for me to do. Like, how do I bridge my spiritual world, the part of myself that's very visionary and a human, you know, the physical world? And in terms of manifestation and money manifestation mastery, which I specialize in, it's all about bridging that gap between the soul and the spiritual and the physical, which means going through that birth canal, through the body, right? Through those levels and layers of our body, and grounding into gold, or even grieving into gold, what I call the fortune of your feelings, which is like, we have to go in and through. And again, because I didn't want to go there, I was like pinging out, wanting to pull out and disassociate and go off into like a fantasy world. So the spiritual practices for me ended up almost being like a fantasy world and a place to escape to. So my soul's guidance, and through my ass being kicked through my business and the money manifestation mastery process, it kicks my ass every day. It's a journey of like, okay, yes, all the vision, and yes, all this beautiful spiritual stuff, which is a skill that I've developed over a long time. And right, we need to ground it, we need to root it, we need to put the seed in the ground, right? The seed goes into the dark, cold, damp soil, right? So the roots can grow down into the darkness. Mm-hmm. And on a human level, that doesn't feel good, you know. So it's like, I imagine if we were a seed, you know, in transformation work, the seed is there, all that pressure before the shell cracks. And then the journey the roots need to go to, going through the soil, that's not going to necessarily feel good, right? So I try to remember that. Or, you know, the journey of birth, the baby moving through the birth canal and the mother birthing the baby. It's intense. And so this is really part of life I've learned to accept, and to kind of work with it, but really consciously and mindfully. Like we said, not let it take you over, not get stuck in this like poor me or depression, or just like being taken down by it, but working with it so it can move and it can alchemize, it can, and then that's, for me, this is true transformation, real transformation in your physical reality, in your business, in your finances, in your life. So it's a lived experience. It's embodied. It's here. And so obviously I've learned all this the hard way and continue to, but what's extraordinary is our brains don't, it's because they're hardwired towards pleasure and comfort. We don't realize when we feel pain or we feel discomfort, it's like danger, alert, don't go forward, right? And especially when you're being guided or wanting to do something new or that's unknown, it can feel horrendous, even though I find sometimes the things I'm going for is exactly what I want, but it feels like pain and it feels bad. It's not necessarily. Obviously, losing a loved one, it does feel pretty terrible. But also, like, even with something like grief, what I learned about grieving when my best friend died very suddenly is that when I surrendered to feeling it and not fighting the grief, what I dropped into was the most profound love for her, and the most profound love and appreciation for life. And when I dropped in, what I started to really get was how precious life is, how short life is. And it started to make me, one, appreciate being alive, and two, holy shit, this doesn't last for very long. So stop fucking around and like, let's start making things happen. It actually gave me courage to do things in my business that I've been avoiding, or things I've been scared to do. Because like, hey, we're all going to die. So what? So like, that's just an example of like grieving. Like, it doesn't feel good. Of course, you're missing that person terribly, but there's all this kind of riches in it when we sink in. How about you, Karina? Have you found anything around grieving or going into?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like it's such a multi-layered experience. And I feel like for most experiences, whether they're really great experiences or really painful ones, they're never only dark and horrible or only happy and joyful. So like when you have huge success, I find I don't usually only feel joy. I also feel other uncomfortable things. And the same with grief. I felt like it just brings everything much closer, and it's so much deeper and richer. So yeah, it was really hard losing my mom, and I was really sad, and I've never cried as much as I have this year. But I've also never felt as many beautiful feelings, and like feeling so grateful and feeling so loved and feeling so connected to her. And like, it's like experiencing both deep pain and deep pleasure and joy at the same time, or kind of overlapping. So it's just been really rich and amazing, which feels kind of weird to say. So yeah, definitely. It's so different from avoiding, because that's what I did when my dad died. I was very young at the time. So very different experience. But this has just been, now I'm like, it's been 6 months now. So I'm like, I feel like I'm kind of partly on the other side, and I have much more better days than difficult days. And now I'm like receiving so many of the gifts from this experience. And now it feels like bliss, which feels kind of insane to say, but amazing also. I wanted to touch on something else that you said about like how when we meditate and get maybe high on energy, right, then we really need to bridge the gap when it comes to physical reality as well. Because I find that, because your specialty really is money, although you dive into so many other topics, because money is never only about money, right? But one of the things I find is that we can visualize money, we can call in money energetically, but if we don't dive into the things that are holding us back from receiving money, being wealthy, keeping that wealth, and feeling happy being wealthy, then we can't have the full experience. And so I know that your amazing wealth retreat is coming up again on September 18th. So I've done Lara's free wealth retreats online a few times now, and they're incredible. So much depth, great community, great energy, very powerful transformations. Is that, how do you then guide people into creating that connection and moving through, whether it's pain or fears or whatever is coming up for people, usually around money, into actually opening up to receive money and then having it? Because it's one thing to receive it and the other to keep it, right? Or have a healthy relationship with money.
Yeah, great question. And yeah, obviously it's a process. And the first thing is you've got to meet yourself where you are now. And there's so much going on in our unconscious. There's so much going on in our energetic system, in our mindset and stories and beliefs. And that's what I love about this work too, is there's so much to be revealed. Like there, like this tip of the iceberg of yourself. Like this is like the bit, and it's like going into yourself. It's like this whole world of wealth, and wealth on so many levels. So that's the first thing. It's like to think of it as like this great adventure to know yourself, into life, into new worlds. And so I think if you like travel and adventure, this is a really great journey. And it doesn't mean like if you're traveling or going on an adventure, you're going to have challenges and obstacles to come up against, right? So like to see it like that, rather than I think what our brains do is we think, I want to get the result. I want the money, or I need the thing, or we kind of get hyper fixated on the external result, which is cool. But what I found is that's a symptom of a much deeper and richer process. So first is to understand you're on a journey. We're not trying to get there, trying to fix it. We are opening up to the deeper, richer journey of conscious wealth creation. And really what I do, and an important piece, is how do we do this? Well, one, I'm going to take you through my step-by-step process in the wealth retreat and seed plant this step-by-step. But the simple thing is that it's a space for you to step into, to allow this work to happen. Because one of the things is we're so busy doing, hustling, like, taking all this action, but what I like to do is create space to actually strip it all down and stop and be present with what's here, because there is so much more available to us than we realize. And there's so much more here. So we have to look at start to uncover where you're unconsciously stopping or blocking yourself from receiving, from welcoming in. And again, pain avoidance is part of that, because we don't want to feel the bad feelings, or we don't want to feel uncomfortable. So we do all this buffering and all this avoidance and all this stuff. So we're taking all this, I'm so busy, taking all this action, right? Doing. But we're actually missing. So it's like the slowing down to speeding up. So for me, I call it the wealth retreat, because it is a retreat to stop and step into the deep, rich world of wealth, which may initially feel uncomfortable, but actually what we're doing is cracking open the pleasure portal to prosperity as well, and opening up to receive. Because actually what's so fascinating to me, as you were saying, like when there's success, it's not all good. It doesn't feel good. And there's a really fascinating phenomenon, which is around the discomfort of receiving, of actually getting what you want. And so part of the money manifestation mastery process that I've learned the hard way as well is there's one, manifesting money or making money. You can make it, but can you hold it? Can you keep it? Can you look after it? And this is that next level of learning to have and to hold. And I call this your money marriage, where you're learning to actually stay really committed and present, and learning how to work with it and grow it and nurture it. And that's another level. So even though we want that, we want that financial safety and security in those foundations, it's a really interesting thing to look at almost where that is uncomfortable or painful for you to actually receive. And so even though what you're receiving is good, your body or your hardwiring will tell you, no, right? And that's why we need to that's the pain portal to prosperity bit. We're like, okay, like what is this thing that I don't want to feel that's actually on the other side of that is going to bring me more what I want? And it's endlessly fascinating. And it's, very simply, we're scared of the unknown. We're scared of what we don't know, right? And our brains are hardwired for comfort. So, and actually what you're being asked to do, even though you want that result, is going to feel uncomfortable because it's going to be unknown. So we want to hold space so you don't freak out, regulate your nervous system, stay open, let go of control, let go of contraction. Stay present with all of it, the pain and the pleasure and the prosperity. How much can you receive? How much can you hold? How much can you stay present with? And for me, this is really part of the mastery level of money manifestation.
Yeah, it's so powerful to feel safe enough to receive, because I feel like often we ask for things, but then when they arrive, at least that's in my experience, when they arrive, I'm like, oh, it feels a little bit too much or uncomfortable, or is it really fair? Or maybe there should be it should be redistributed to someone else, like all the stuff going on. And it's so interesting to see what comes up. And then, like you said, to stay with it, to stay present, to like breathe with it, be with it until you feel safe to step into another level of wealth and joy and happiness and like pleasure and all the good things as well. Because I feel like once we've moved through the big like pain points and like the fears, then we also need to practice to receive all the goodness, right? And that can just be just as difficult as moving through the pain. For me, it's been more challenging to allow myself to receive the good things than I think the pain, because that feels more, I guess, comfortable, and I'm probably not the only one. So I love your process, and I know it's really powerful, and you've worked with a lot of people all over the world. So if anyone feels called to join Lara, it's a free retreat, and it starts on September 18th. I'm going to leave the link below if you want to sign up, and I hope you'll love the experience. Lara is also super present in the group to answer questions and to share all your amazing experiences and wisdom on this topic that you've been diving into for a really, really long time. And it's definitely lived experience, which I find super helpful, because it's one thing to talk about things that we've read about, and a whole different level to actually experience things over and over again as we get older as well. And then teaching from that place of embodied wisdom and knowledge. So thank you so much, Lara, and thank you to everyone watching this. If you have any questions, or you want to share any insights, anything that popped up for you that you want to, that really resonated with you or surprised you, please share in the comments as well. And yeah, thank you so much for this time together, Lara, and for sharing.
Thank you so much for having me and for this beautiful conversation. And I look forward to being with some of you live, diving even deeper very soon.
Yes.